When my daughter said, "Don't open the attic, Mom," I laughed softly and nodded, pretending I understood why. But when she left and the house went quiet, I looked up at the ceiling, at that small wooden door I'd never paid much attention to. And something in me whispered, "Why not?" It's strange how a single sentence can stay in your mind for days. I kept hearing her voice, gentle but firm. "Please, Mom, promise me you won't go up there." She said it while packing her suitcase that afternoon, standing in the doorway like she was about to leave forever. I thought she was just tired. Maybe she didn't want me to see how messy the attic was. Or maybe there were old things she didn't want me to touch. But now looking back, I know her voice carried something else. Fear, pain, maybe guilt. That night the rain began, soft at first, like fingers tapping on the window pane. I sat by the kitchen table, sipping tea from the same chipped cup I'd used for years. The smell of lemon and honey filled the air. I used to make that same tea for her when she was little. Her name is Lily, my only daughter, my everything. She used to sit right here, swinging her little legs, telling me stories about her school friends, or how she'd found a bird feather in the yard and kept it in her pocket because she said it was lucky. And now she was 30, married, and living in another town. She'd asked me to stay in this house for a while after her father passed away. I thought it was kindness. Maybe it was. But sometimes kindness hides fear. That night, I looked at the attic again. It was an old farmhouse built by my husband's grandfather. The attic wasn't large, just a crawl space with a single hanging bulb. We never used it much. We stored old photo boxes and winter blankets up there. But since Lily had come home last month, something changed. She kept glancing at the ceiling, like she was listening for sounds I couldn't hear. Once, I caught her sitting on the stairs at midnight, her eyes wide open, staring upward. When I asked, she smiled and said, "Just couldn't sleep, Mom." But her smile didn't reach her eyes. So when she said those words before leaving, "Don't open the attic, Mom," I felt a chill in my chest, though I didn't understand why. I remember replying with a little laugh, "Sweetheart, it's just dust and boxes up there." She didn't laugh back. She just looked at me, her eyes full of something I can't name. Then she hugged me tightly, tighter than usual. When she drove away, I stood at the gate, watching the car disappear down the road. The house felt larger, emptier. The silence after she left felt heavy, almost alive. That's when I first heard it, a faint sound, like something shifting above the ceiling. I froze, listening. It could have been the rain or the wind, but it came again, a soft scrape, then silence. My heart beat faster. Maybe it was a squirrel, maybe wood expanding. But my mind started to wonder what Lily was so afraid of. I tried to distract myself. I washed the dishes. I folded the laundry. I even turned on the small radio by the counter, the one my husband used to fix every Sunday morning. But even with the soft country songs playing, the thought kept returning. What's in the attic? And so late that night, with the rain still whispering against the glass, I climbed the stairs slowly, holding a small flashlight. Each step creaked beneath me, the sound echoing through the quiet house. The air grew colder as I reached the landing. The attic door waited at the top, a simple wooden panel with an old brass latch. I could almost hear Lily's voice again. "Promise me, Mom." I stood there for a long time. My hand hovered near the latch. Then I sighed and turned back. I didn't open it. Not that night. But the thought stayed with me. And in the days that followed, I began to notice things, small things, that made me wonder if I ever truly knew my daughter at all. When I finally opened that attic door, weeks later, I learned the truth she'd been hiding for years. A truth that would change everything I believed about our family, about her childhood, and even about myself. But before I tell you what I found up there, I need to tell you how it all began. When Lily was still my little girl, with the feather in her pocket and laughter in her eyes. When Lily was born, it was a quiet morning in early spring. The world outside smelled of rain and wet earth. I remember the sound of the wind brushing against the hospital window as I held her for the first time. She was so small, wrapped in a blanket that seemed too big for her tiny body. Her father, Daniel, stood beside me, nervous and smiling, like a man holding the whole world in his hands and not knowing what to do with it. He kissed my forehead and whispered, "She's perfect, Mary." And she was. Those first few years of her life were the softest time of my own. We didn't have much, a small farmhouse, a single car that coughed before it started, and bills that always seemed to wait for payday. But we had laughter. We had warmth. Lily grew up chasing fireflies in the yard. She'd run barefoot through the tall grass, calling out, "Mom, look, I caught one." Her little hands would glow softly with the trapped light, and I'd tell her to let it go so it could find its friends again. She'd pout for a moment, then open her fingers and watch it fly away, whispering, "Good night, little star." That's what she called them, little stars. She believed every firefly carried a wish. The attic back then was nothing special, just a dusty space full of cardboard boxes and old family things. Daniel used to store his tools up there. I never liked climbing those narrow stairs. It always felt colder than the rest of the house, even in summer. Still, sometimes when Lily was 6 or 7, she'd ask, "Mom, can I play in the attic?" I always said no. Too many spiders, too much dust. But once I found her there anyway. She'd climbed up by herself, curious as always. When I opened the hatch, I saw her sitting cross, legged near an old chest, humming softly, tracing her fingers over something in her lap. It was an old music box, one I'd forgotten existed. When I called her name, she looked up, startled, then smiled. "It sings, Mom," she said. I told her not to come up there again, and she nodded. But her eyes lingered on that box, like it was a secret she wanted to keep. Daniel passed away when Lily was 12. A sudden heart attack. One of those cruel, silent things that come with no warning. The day he died, the house went quiet in a way I had never known. I remember sitting on the edge of our bed that night, holding Lily close. She didn't cry much. Not then. She just asked one question over and over. Where did Daddy go? I told her he went to heaven, that he was watching over us. But inside, I wasn't sure I believed it myself. After that, something changed in her. She became quieter, still kind, still loving, but quieter. She'd spend hours alone in her room, sketching or writing in her notebook. Once I found her sitting by the window, looking up toward the attic door again. When I asked what she was thinking about, she said, "I think Daddy left something up there." I told her no, it's just old boxes. But she didn't look convinced. Years passed. Lily grew into a beautiful young woman, gentle, thoughtful, always helping others before herself. She got good grades, went to college, and came home every few weekends to help me with the garden or fix little things around the house. She'd make us pancakes on Sunday mornings, the kitchen filled with the smell of butter and coffee, just like the old days when Daniel was alive. She'd tell me stories about her classes, her friends, and this boy named Ethan. I could tell by the way she said his name that he was special. Her eyes softened. Her voice warmed. And a few years later, they got married. Ethan was polite, respectful, the kind of man who shook your hand with both of his. He treated Lily well, at least from what I saw. They moved into a small house near the city, and though I missed her terribly, I was happy knowing she was loved. We'd talk on the phone every week. Sometimes she'd sound bright, cheerful, other times distant. I'd ask, "Is everything okay, sweetheart?" She'd always answer, "Yeah, Mom, just tired." Then, one day, she called and said she wanted to come home for a while. I didn't ask too many questions. I just said, "Of course, honey, your room's waiting for you." When she arrived, I noticed the dark circles under her eyes. She smiled, but it didn't reach her heart. Ethan dropped her off, said he had to take care of some things, and drove away. She never told me what had happened between them, and I didn't press her. Sometimes love leaves bruises we don't show on the skin. That first week back home, she barely slept. She'd wake up in the middle of the night and walk around the house. Sometimes I'd hear the floor creak and peek from my room to see her standing near the attic stairs, just staring upward. When I'd ask, "Sweetheart, what are you doing up?" she'd just shake her head and whisper, "Nothing, Mom." Go back to bed. I wanted to help her, but I didn't know how. She wasn't angry, just heavy, somehow, like she was carrying something she couldn't set down. One morning, I found her sitting on the porch steps, looking at the sky. She said softly, "Do you ever feel like a house remembers everything that happens inside it?" I looked at her, not sure what to say. She went on, like it keeps all the secrets, the laughter, the fights, the things people don't say out loud. Her eyes filled with tears. Sometimes I think this house remembers more than I do. I didn't understand what she meant. Not then. In the days that followed, small things began to happen. I'd hear faint footsteps at night when I knew she was asleep. Objects would move slightly. A chair out of place, a photo frame turned a little. Once, I found the attic door half open. When I asked Lily about it, she said sharply, "Don't go up there, Mom." Her voice cracked. "Please, promise me." And I did, because the way she said it, her eyes trembling, her hands clutching her sleeves, it wasn't just a request. It was fear. After that, she spent more and more time sitting by the window upstairs, facing the attic door. She wouldn't say what she was waiting for, but sometimes I'd see her whispering softly as if talking to someone. Once, I stood outside her door and listened. Her voice was low, shaky. "I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't mean to." My heart tightened. I wanted to open the door to hold her, but something in me froze. I felt like an outsider in my own house, listening to a part of her life I wasn't meant to hear. Then, one morning, she packed her things quietly. When I asked where she was going, she said she needed to go back to Ethan, that they were working things out. Before she left, she took my hands in hers and said, "Mom, no matter what happens, don't open the attic. Promise me." I nodded, confused but obedient. She kissed my cheek, said she loved me, and drove away. And that was the last peaceful morning I had in that house. Because after she left, the silence wasn't empty anymore. It had movement, like the house was breathing. After Lily left, the house didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a stranger wearing the same walls and windows. At first, I tried to fill the silence. I kept myself busy, cooking, cleaning, tending the garden. I even turned on the old TV in the living room just to hear voices. But no matter what sound I added, the quiet underneath it never really went away. It was like the house had learned to breathe without me noticing. The first few nights were calm. Then the noises began. It started with small things. A soft creak above the kitchen ceiling. A muffled thud somewhere overhead. At first I told myself it was the wood settling, or maybe a raccoon. But the sounds had a rhythm, almost like footsteps. I'd stop what I was doing and listen, my heart beating faster. When I called out, "Lily," just out of habit, the sound stopped. Then nothing, only silence. One evening, while folding laundry, I noticed something strange. The photo frame on the mantel, the one of Daniel holding baby Lily, had been turned slightly, facing toward the stairs. I knew I hadn't moved it. It's funny how your mind plays tricks when you're alone. You start to question yourself. Maybe I bumped it. Maybe I forgot. But deep down, I knew I hadn't touched that frame in weeks. That night, I went to bed with the hallway light on. I hadn't done that since Lily was little. The next morning, I found the attic door cracked open. Just a few inches, enough to see darkness between the hinges. A thin trail of dust lay disturbed along the floorboards, leading toward the stairs. I stood there for a long moment, staring at it. My hands trembled slightly as I reached up and closed it. The latch clicked softly, but the sound didn't comfort me. It felt like I had just locked something in, not out. I called Lily that afternoon. Her phone rang several times before she picked up. "Hey, Mom," she said. Her voice sounded tired, distant. I asked her how she was, if everything was okay with Ethan. She said yes, that they were trying again. Then, before I could stop myself, I said, "Auntie, I think someone's been in the attic." There was silence on the line, then a sharp inhale. "Mom," she said quietly, "promise me you didn't go up there." I didn't. "But I found the door open this morning." "Then leave it alone, please. Just don't go near it." Okay? Her tone made my stomach twist. It wasn't just fear. It was panic. "Sweetheart," I said, trying to stay calm, "is there something you need to tell me?" There was a long pause. Then she whispered, "No, I just don't want you to get hurt." The call ended soon after. I sat there, staring at my phone, her words echoing in my head. "I don't want you to get hurt." What could possibly be in that attic that would hurt me? The next few days blurred together. The noises continued, sometimes soft, sometimes sharp, always at night. I'd wake to faint scraping sounds, like something being dragged across the floor above my room. Once, I thought I heard a voice. It was faint, barely a whisper, like someone calling a name I couldn't quite make out. I sat up in bed, holding my breath, straining to listen. Then silence again. By the fifth night, I couldn't ignore it anymore. I decided to go up there during the day while the sun was shining. Maybe I'd find a loose shutter or an animal's nest, something normal. I took the step ladder from the garage and climbed up. As I reached for the latch, my hand hesitated. The metal was cold, colder than it should have been on a warm afternoon. I pushed the panel open. A wave of dust fell, dancing in the sunlight. The smell hit me first. Old wood, mildew, and something else, something faintly metallic. The light from my flashlight cut through the dark, and isoboxes stacked neatly against the far wall. Everything looked just as I remembered it, except for one thing. There, in the center of the attic, was the old wooden chest, the same one I'd seen Lily sitting beside when she was a child. Only now it was open, Inside, the contents were scattered: photographs, papers, and what looked like small trinkets. I knelt beside it, my heart pounding. I picked up one of the photos. It was of Lily, maybe 10 years old, standing in the yard with Daniel. But someone had drawn over the photo with a pen. Thick black lines covered Daniel's face. My breath caught. I looked at another photo, the same, then another. Every picture that had Daniel in it. His face was scratched out. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. This wasn't just an accident. Someone had done this deliberately. I gathered the photos carefully and put them back in the box. That's when I saw the notebook, a small brown leather journal with the initials LR on the cover. Lily's handwriting. I hesitated before opening it. It felt wrong, like reading a secret, but my hands moved on their own. The first few pages were normal, little notes, sketches, pieces of poetry. Then, halfway through, the tone changed. The handwriting grew shakier, rushed. One line caught my eye. He comes when the house is quiet. He stands by the attic door. I froze. The next page read, I told Mom it's just creaks and wind. But I know it's not. I hear him breathing, and my mouth went dry. I turned another page. Sometimes I think it's Dad, but it's not him. It's what's left of him. The part that never left. I dropped the book. It hit the floor with a dull thud. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing those words. He stands by the attic door. The air in the house felt heavier, thicker. Even the lights seemed dimmer somehow. Around midnight, I heard a sound from upstairs, soft, slow steps moving from one end of the attic to the other. Then a pause. The steps stopped right above my room. I held my breath, clutching the blanket to my chest. Every part of me wanted to believe it was my imagination. But when I looked at the ceiling, I swear the shadows shifted. I whispered, Daniel. Before I could stop myself, no answer. Only silence. The next morning, I found muddy footprints near the bottom of the attic stairs. Small, faint, almost like a child's. I cleaned them up quickly, telling myself it must have been me tracking in dirt. But I knew better. I tried to call Lily again that day, but she didn't answer. So I left her a message, my voice shaking slightly. Honey, if there's something I need to know, please tell me. I found your notebook. Please call me. She didn't call back. For days, I lived in half light, too afraid to sleep deeply, too nervous to stay awake. The noises continued, now more frequent. Sometimes the attic door would rattle softly, as if something was testing the latch. I'd find small things misplaced. A teacup moved, a chair turned, the window cracked open when I knew I'd shut it tight. The house didn't feel like mine anymore. It felt like someone, or something, was sharing it with me. And every night I'd hear the soft hum of the old music box, the one Lily found all those years ago, playing by itself somewhere above me. That night, the wind came hard against the windows. The trees outside bent and swayed, their shadows crawling across the floor like long fingers. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at my tea. The candle flickered, and for a moment, it almost looked like the flame was breathing. I hadn't slept in 2 days. My body was tired, but my mind wouldn't rest. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the attic door, cracked open just enough for the darkness to look back at me. The music box had played again, soft, distant, almost tender. The same song Lily used to hum as a child. And I realized something I hadn't before, that melody had always come from her room, not from the attic. But this time, it came from above. I got up slowly, holding the small flashlight I kept on the counter. My hands were trembling, but not from fear, from the weight of needing to know. Whatever my daughter had tried to hide, whatever she was afraid of, I couldn't let it live in my home any longer. I whispered to myself, "It's just the wind. Just the wind." But even I didn't believe it. I climbed the stairs, each step groaning under my feet. The hallway light flickered once, then steadied. The air felt colder up there, sharper somehow. When I reached the top, the attic door was open again. Wide this time. I froze. The darkness beyond the doorway felt deeper than it should have been, as if the light couldn't enter it fully. The faint smell of dust and old wood filled the air, mixed with something else, something sweet like old perfume. "Lily," I whispered. No answer. I took one step inside. The floorboards moaned softly. My flashlight beam shook across the space, over boxes, the old chest, a broken chair. And then it landed on something that made me stop breathing. In the far corner of the attic, there was a small wooden chair, and on it sat the music box. It was open, playing its slow, haunting tune. Next to it, on the floor, lay a folded piece of paper. I knelt down carefully and picked it up. The handwriting was shaky but familiar. "Mom, if you're reading this, it means I couldn't keep it away anymore." My heart thudded in my chest. "I didn't tell you the truth about what happened that night with Dad. I wanted to protect you. But I think the house remembers what I tried to forget." My hands shook. I could barely hold the paper steady. He didn't just die from a heart attack. He fell. It was an accident, but it was my fault. I gasped softly. My knees went weak. The words blurred through my tears. We were arguing. I was angry because he'd found out I'd been sneaking into the attic. I didn't mean to push him. He slipped. I screamed. I tried to get help, but it was too late. The next line broke me. "You told everyone it was sudden. You didn't know what really happened. I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell anyone." I dropped the letter, my whole body trembling. I remembered that night, how the thunder had rolled through the sky, how Daniel had been found at the bottom of the stairs, how the doctors said it was quick. But now I saw the truth. I looked up at the music box. Its soft tune continued, unaware of the ache it carried. Tears streamed down my face. "Oh, Lily," I whispered. "You were just a child." As I reached to close the music box, I felt a gust of cold air sweep past me. The light flickered. The attic seemed to breathe again. For a moment, I thought I saw movement in the corner, the faint outline of a man standing by the rafters. Not frightening, not angry, just watching. I blinked, and he was gone. The air grew still again. I sat there on the wooden floor, clutching the letter to my chest, and cried quietly into the silence. All the years of confusion, of her distance, of her sadness, they made sense now. She hadn't just been grieving her father. She'd been carrying the weight of guilt that no child should ever bear, and I'd never known. When I finally stood, my legs felt heavy. I closed the music box and placed it gently back in the chest. Then I gathered the letter and the photographs, even the ones she'd scratched out, and took them downstairs. In the kitchen, I laid everything on the table. The candle flame trembled, as if reacting to the truth sitting before it. I made a pot of tea, even though I didn't really want any. The smell of honey filled the air again. That smell always reminded me of her laughter. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the living room, watching the shadows shift across the walls. And just before dawn, I heard it, a soft knock at the front door. I opened it, and there she was, Lily. Her eyes were red and tired, her hair messy from the wind. She looked smaller than I remembered. She didn't say a word. She just fell into my arms and started to cry. I held her tightly, my own tears falling into her hair. "It's okay," I whispered. "It's okay. Sweetheart, I know." She froze for a moment, then pulled back, her face pale. You read it?" I nodded. "I'm sorry," I said softly. "I wasn't supposed to, but I had to know." She shook her head, sobbing harder. "I didn't mean to, Mom. I didn't mean to hurt him." "I know," I whispered. "I know, baby. It was an accident. You were scared." She looked at me, her lips trembling. "I thought he hated me," she said. "After he fell, I could feel him here, in the house, watching me. I thought he wanted me to pay." My chest tightened. "Oh, honey, he never hated you. He loved you. He would have forgiven you." She buried her face in my shoulder, and we both cried until there were no tears left. When the morning light came through the windows, soft and golden, the house felt lighter, warmer. Somehow, the silence that had once felt heavy now felt peaceful, like a sigh of relief. Lily went upstairs later that morning. I followed quietly. She opened the attic again, this time without fear. The music box sat there, still closed. She knelt beside it and whispered, "I'm sorry, Dad." Then she turned the tiny key and let the melody play one last time. It sounded different now, not haunting, not sad, just gentle. We stood together, listening. And when the final note faded, the light through the attic window seemed to brighten. For the first time in years, I felt the house exhale. That was the turning point. The moment truth replaced silence. The moment guilt became forgiveness. The attic wasn't cursed or haunted. It was just a room holding too many secrets. And once they were spoken, once we faced them, it became just another part of our home again. After that morning, something inside the house changed. It wasn't something you could see or touch. It was something you felt. The air didn't carry that strange heaviness anymore. The floorboards didn't creak when no one was walking. Even the light through the windows seemed softer. Lily stayed for a while after that. She said she wanted to help me with the garden, but I think she just didn't want to leave me alone. And truthfully, I didn't want her to go either. For days, we hardly talked about what happened. Sometimes words aren't enough, and silence says what hearts already understand. We'd cook breakfast together, side by side, like we used to when she was little. I'd chop the vegetables, and she'd hum softly. Not the tune from the music box, but a new one. One afternoon, we sat on the porch, sipping lemonade. The air smelled of freshly cut grass and wildflowers. Lily looked out toward the old oak tree where she used to play as a child. "Mom," she said quietly, "do you think he forgave me?" I turned to her, smiling through tears. "Honey, your father loved you more than anything in this world. He would never have wanted you to carry that kind of pain." She nodded slowly, her eyes glistening. "Sometimes I dream about him. He's standing by the attic stairs, just looking at me. Not angry, just waiting." I reached over and took her hand. "Maybe he wasn't waiting for you to be scared anymore. Maybe he was waiting for you to let go." She looked at me, and for the first time in years, she smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes. Over the next few weeks, she started to come back to life. She'd wake early, make breakfast, hum while folding laundry. She opened the windows wide and let the sunlight pour into every corner of the house. It felt like the house was healing with her. One morning, I found her cleaning the attic, sweeping the dust, sorting through old boxes, even laughing softly as she found her childhood drawings. Mom, she called out. Look at this. She held up a crayon sketch, a little stick figure family standing under a big sun. There was me, Daniel, and her, all smiling. I took the paper, my heart swelling. You drew this when you were 6. She grinned. Yeah, I remember Dad said the sun looked like a fried egg. We both laughed. It was a small thing, but it felt like forgiveness blooming quietly between us. A few days later, we took a drive into town. Lily wanted to visit the old antique shop where Daniel used to buy small tools and knick-knacks. The bell above the door jingled when we walked in, and the smell of old wood and dust felt oddly comforting. As we browsed, she found a music box on one of the shelves, almost identical to the one from the attic. She turned the key, and the melody that played was cheerful, not haunting. She smiled softly. Maybe it's time to replace the old one. I nodded. A new song for a new chapter. She bought it, and when we returned home, she placed it on the living room shelf. From that day on, every evening before bed, she'd wind it once, just enough for the tune to fill the house for a moment, warm and alive. Ethan called a few weeks later. When Lily saw his name flash on her phone, she hesitated. Then she sighed and answered. I didn't hear their conversation, but when she came back to the kitchen, her eyes were calm. We decided to take some time apart, she said. Has moving out for now, and that's okay. I nodded. Sometimes letting go is the bravest thing you can do. She smiled faintly. I think I finally understand what peace feels like. That night, we sat together by the fire. The old house creaked softly, but it sounded different now. Familiar, almost gentle. The shadows no longer frightened us. They felt like part of our story. I looked at her, the firelight flickering across her face, and whispered, You were so strong, Lily. You carried that pain for so long. But it doesn't define you. She leaned against me. I wish I'd told you sooner. I brushed her hair back. You told me when you were ready. That's what matters. Later, as I washed the dishes, I caught my reflection in the window. Tired, older, but at peace. For the first time since Daniel's death, I didn't feel like a part of me was missing. Grief had changed shape. It wasn't sharp anymore. It had softened into something gentle, like memory rather than loss. I realized then that healing isn't about forgetting. It's about remembering without fear. A few days later, I asked Lily if she'd like to visit Daniel's grave with me. She hesitated at first, then nodded. We brought white lilies, his favorite flowers, and coincidentally, her namesake. The cemetery was quiet, the sky a soft gray. We stood together in silence for a while. Then she knelt down, brushing the leaves from the stone, and whispered, Hi, Dad. I stepped back, letting her have her moment. She spoke softly, telling him everything she'd been holding back. How sorry she was, how much she loved him, how she'd missed him every day. Her voice trembled, but there was no fear in it, only love. When she finished, she stood and took a deep breath. It feels lighter now, she said. I nodded, tears in my eyes, because you finally told the truth, and the truth sets us free. She looked at me, and we both smiled. That evening, back at the house, the sunset painted everything gold. Lily made tea while I sat by the window, watching the light fade. The new music box played softly in the background. When the song ended, the house grew quiet again, but not empty. I looked toward the ceiling, toward where the attic rested above us, and for the first time, I felt gratitude. That small, hidden space had carried years of pain, but it had also led us here, to truth, to forgiveness, to peace. Later that night, as we locked up the house, Lily looked at me with a shy smile. "Mom," she said, "I think I'll stay a little longer, maybe until I figure things out." I smiled back. "Stay as long as you need, sweetheart. This will always be your home." She nodded, hugging me tightly. And as she walked upstairs, I noticed something beautiful. She didn't look at the attic door anymore. She just passed it, calmly, quietly, as if the fear had finally left her. That night, I dreamt of Daniel. He was standing in the kitchen, smiling, holding that same chipped cup I still used. He didn't speak. He just nodded once, softly, like he was saying thank you. When I woke, the morning light was spilling through the curtains. The house was warm, alive, and still. For the first time in a long time, I whispered, "Good morning," and meant it. It's been 6 months since that morning in the attic. The seasons have turned. The trees outside are green again, and the air smells of life. Lily still lives here, though she talks sometimes about moving into a small apartment nearby, somewhere close enough to visit often. Every day feels quiet in a different way now. Not empty, peaceful. Sometimes I still look up at the ceiling where the attic door sits, and I think about all the years we lived under that silence. It's strange, isn't it? The things we hide to protect the people we love often end up hurting us more. I used to think strength meant holding everything together, never breaking, never letting anyone see your pain. But now I know strength can also be soft. It's in the moments when we forgive, when we speak the truth, even if our voices shake. One evening, Lily and I sat outside watching the fireflies, her little stars. She caught one in her hands, just like she used to as a child. She opened her fingers and smiled as it flew away. I asked, "What did you wish for?" She looked at me and said, "For peace." Then she laughed softly. "And maybe for you to stop worrying about me so much." I smiled. That one might take a little longer. We both laughed. It felt good to laugh again, the kind that comes from a healed place. There's something about time that I never understood when I was younger. It doesn't really erase pain. It teaches you how to live beside it. The HE doesn't disappear, but it changes shape, becomes a memory, a lesson, a reminder of how far you've come. I think about Daniel often. I think about his kindness, his laughter, his patience with both of us. Sometimes when the house is quiet, I feel like he's still here, not haunting, just here. In the warmth of the light, in the softness of our voices, in the love that survived him. Last week, I finally climbed into the attic again. This time, I wasn't afraid. The air was still dusty, but it smelled like cedar and sunlight instead of secrets. The old chest was still there. I opened it slowly. Inside were the photos Lily and I had repaired together, the ones she'd once scratched through. We'd pasted them carefully on new paper, smoothing out the tears. Daniel's smile looked whole again. I traced my fingers over his face and whispered, "We're okay now." The silence that followed felt like an answer. As I came back down, I heard Lily's laughter from the kitchen. She was on the phone with a friend, her voice light and free. It made me smile. That sound so full of life. She's learning to live again. And maybe in my own quiet way I am too. I think every family carries a room like that attic, a place where memories and mistakes hide, where the air feels heavy until someone dares to open the door. For some, it's a conversation never had. For others, it's a truth never told. But one day, if you're brave enough, you open it, and light pours in. you see that the monsters you were afraid of were really just shadows, and you realize it was never the attic that haunted you. It was the silence. Now, when I walk through the house, I feel Daniel's love in every creak of the floor. I feel Lily's laughter echoing down the hall. I feel my own heart steady, calm, still learning, but full again. I make my tea every morning in that same cup. I sit by the window watching the sun rise over the fields, and sometimes, if I listen closely, I can hear the faint hum of the new music box playing downstairs. It's not the same song, but it's ours. If you ask me what I learned from all this, I'd say love isn't about holding on so tightly that nothing breaks. It's about learning to open your hands, even when it hurts. Forgiveness isn't a single moment. It's a quiet choice you make every day. And sometimes healing doesn't come from fixing what's broken, but from understanding it and letting the light in. So if you ever find yourself standing before your own attic door, afraid of what's behind it, open it gently. You might find pain there, yes, but you might also find peace waiting like an old friend, because sometimes the hardest stories to face are the ones that set us free. A soft music swells, piano and strings, warm and hopeful, visual cue, the mother closing the attic gently, turning off the light, and walking toward the window as morning sun fills the room.